Okay, well, welcome back. In this video, you're actually going to get to see the piece rotating on the lathe. And between videos, I plugged the lathe in. You'll notice the dust collection isn't running. I've plugged this into one outlet that isn't tied to the dust collection because for shooting a video, the dust collector is just too loud. But when you're in here, the dust collector will be on and running while you run the lathe. So, but just to, there we go. This piece is on the third pulley now. This piece isn't, the speed is. And that means it's running at 1,250 revolutions per minute. That's about the right speed for starting with spindle turning. Lots of turners like to turn faster than that, but I'm kind of used to working in a school shop environment, and unless you have control, which you probably don't the first few times you turn, I don't want you spinning things terribly fast, okay? It's a safety thing. There are others around you. We need to be careful. Okay, your tools. All the tools that you need are down in the lathe itself, in the drawer. Okay, and can you still see me? Yeah, I'm still there. We are basically going to use 3 tools. And I'm going to talk about each of them now before I get started. Okay, the bottom 3 on the rack. I don't know if you can see the rack in the video, but the red one's a 1/2-inch spindle gouge. Okay, that's our main tool. The blue one is a 1/4-inch spindle gouge. It's just smaller, but it's the same grind and the same shape. And then last but not least is the parting tool. The parting tool is really easy to use, and I think you'll have fun with it. Now, when you're turning, it's not a good idea to put the tools on the lathe like that. So for this demonstration, I'm just going to set them on the table and take the one I need. Now, you're going to find out when you start turning that there's a lot of chips flying everywhere. And during the course of the demo, if I'm talking while I'm turning, I'm going to end up eating some chips. That face shield is very handy. If your face shield is dirty, take it to the sink, clean it just like you clean your glasses, okay? Make it nice and clean so you can see. If you can't see, it's hard to turn well, okay? So anyway, I had my lathe all checked out. I have a habit. I've turned for so many years that whenever there's a piece in the lathe, my hand is always spinning it to make sure it turns. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the lathe on. What you need to do is put the tool on the rest and then gently advance it into the wood. Okay? How you hold the tool is up to you. I like to hold the tool with an underhand grip. This is my right hand, this is my dominant hand, so I've got the tool handle in my right hand. My left hand is guiding the tool tip. Now you can turn the other way too. In fact, I would encourage you to practice turning both with your left hand at the front of the tool and your right hand at the front of the tool, because there are times when being able to go both ways is really, really handy. And that's something that I've kind of taught myself to do. I'm still better right-handed than left-handed, but I can turn pretty good left-handed if I need to, okay? So that's an important skill to learn. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the lathe on, put the tool on the rest first. Oh, and the other thing, you want to have that U straight up. Don't turn the tool at all yet, okay? This is just roughing up. So, here we go. Put it on the rest, and gently put it in the wood. Okay. Don't go shooting off the rest, okay, and only turn as long as you have tool rests. The tool rests here are shorter than the pieces we turn, so you have to move the tool rest to turn this, and we'll do that when this is round. your first goal is to knock the edges off and make it completely round. In other words, your tool touching all the way around. So I'm going to do that quickly. I'm going to speed up a little bit here. Okay. Yeah. Another rule. Well, you can get your finger in between the rest and the wood with the lathe off, of course. Don't do that with the lathe running, okay? Then I'm going to advance the tool rest. So unlock it, push it closer, spin it by hand and lock it again, okay? Now I was turning like this. You can turn like this. What I don't like about the hand on top, well, there's advantages and disadvantages. First of all, you've got lots of power and lots of control with this. This is really nice for that. However, the chips come shooting off the flute, and that's going to hurt your hand after a while. You'd be surprised at those little chips coming off of there, but they're going at a really high speed, and I get tired of having my finger kind of pummeled by these wood chips. So I like the underhand grip better. I like grabbing it like this, not like this. Although I can, I have to. Okay, let's get this going again. Okay, we're close. You notice that I'm turning like this, and the cut is happening right above where the tool's supported. That's really important. If you don't, like say you start cutting over here, but you're holding the tool like this on the rest, you're going to get what's called a catch. The edge is going to grab and it's going to turn the chisel handle, and there's nothing you can do about it. It's way faster than your reflexes are, and it'll go like that, and usually when it does that, it tears a big piece out of your project. So the definition of a catch is turning where the edge is not supported, okay? And that's kind of hard to understand at first, but you'll find out really quickly once you start turning. To learn how to turn, you really have to turn. Okay, that's the important thing there. Okay, I'm going to finish making this round, and then I'm going to round up the other side. This is pretty rough, and that's okay. It really doesn't matter yet whether it's smooth or not. We can smooth everything out when it's round. Okay, I'm going to quickly do this. Another thing I'm hoping you're noticing is that I've got the tool handle tucked into my hip, and I'm moving my torso when I turn. I'm not moving my hands back and forth. You're a lot more steady this way, and you get a much better cut, okay? Oh, and, yep, I should. Okay. Okay, that's roughed out. Now, the 1/2-inch spindle gouge isn't really the best tool for roughing. You can have a spindle roughing gouge, which is better. But years ago when I set these tools up, we didn't have budget, and I figured this could be a spindle gouge and a roughing tool at the same time, so I just didn't buy a spindle gouge, or a roughing gouge for each lathe. Some of my lathes, like there's still one sitting here, I do have roughing gouges for those. So, yeah, there is another tool you could be using. And yes, you do get covered with chips. If you're wearing a hoodie, please make sure the cuffs are tight. I don't want the strings dangling or any of that stuff, because you're dealing with a spinning shaft here, and if you get something caught in it, it's going to grab it and suck it up. and you look pretty silly with your nose sliding along on this piece. Okay, this was a spindle rough and gouge. We used it to rough out. I'm going to show you the parting tool quickly, because when you're working on a project, we never want this cut end or this cut end to be the top or the bottom of your project. The top or the bottom of your project always need to be turned. So we're going to do that now. And the parting tool is a good way to do this. I usually allow, so there's at least a ½ an inch or 13 millimeters, 12, 13 millimeters extra on the end of these blanks. And what I do is, for parting tool, you just put it on the rest like this. And you push it in. Okay? What I just did there is marked one end of my project. Okay? Now I'm going to go to the other side and do that there too. Okay, so basically I turned a tenon on each end. This is still plenty of support, like you could turn here for, like this isn't going to break off. So you've got lots of strength here yet. And now you know where the ends and the top of the bottom, or the start, stop, or beginning and end of your project is, okay? All right, so that's kind of the first thing you'd want to do. So you get your piece in the lathe, you make it round, and then you mark the length with the parting tool. The parting tool leads a pretty rough cut, and I sometimes in wood turning one, if you're doing like a candlestick or something like that, we'll probably just leave the bottom done with the parting tool. But when I'm doing things on my own that I'll give away as a gift, or I haven't tried to sell anything yet, but maybe eventually that, I'd want to finish the bottom nicer than this tool, so I would use a spindle gouge to finish it. Okay, now all the cuts I've shown you so far have been scraping cuts. So in other words, the tool went in like this, and the piece is turning, and we literally are just ripping pieces off. Like, see, that isn't really a shaving. That's a scraping. So our goal is, as fast as possible, to get you to the point where you're shear cutting, or some people call it shearing. But you're going to be cutting with the tool instead of scraping with it. So scraping with it, the tip is straight in like this. Okay, now we're going to vary that tool angle and get it to cut. So think of it this way: when you fold a piece of paper in half and you take a knife and you cut it, if you push with the blade straight, it's a lot harder than if you put the blade at an angle and just cut through. Okay, now we're going to put the blade at an angle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start, okay, so about 45 degrees, and then we're going to rub the back of the tool. Now this back of the tool here, that's called the bevel. Okay, we're going to rub the bevel. So that way, you can safely put your tool on the wood without it reacting. Okay, that's what you get started with, by rubbing the bevel. So we're going to go to about 45 degrees, we're going to go down so that the bevel, the bottom of the tool, touches the wood. And then we're going to turn the lathe on, but I'm going to do this by hand first. Okay, so I've touched the tool, the lathe's turning. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the handle up at an angle towards me. Okay, I don't know if you can see that on the video, but the chips are starting to roll off. Okay, going to be a lot smoother. Here, I'll do some in real time. Okay, so 45 degrees, rub the bevel, pull the handle out. I don't know if you can see this, but the difference is dramatic. This is nice and smooth, and this is really rough, okay? So that's the way you want to learn to cut. You can make all kinds of shapes just by scraping, but there's so much sanding at the end to get anything that looks like quality work that it's just not worth it. Okay, the other thing I'm going to mention to you is hand position on the tool rest. One of the things, and I think it comes from the pen turners, they like to take their left index finger and put it underneath, and then slide it along so that the tool doesn't go deeper into the wood or shallower than they'd like. That can work pretty good. However, be careful you don't get your finger trapped between the gouge and the rest. Okay, that could be painful. Okay, I'm going to clean off this side here. Make it smooth like that. Oh, and you should practice. You don't have to in Woodturning 1. But it's really handy if you can go both ways. If you're not going to do that by turning left-handed like I just did, then you need to swing your body around and you can go towards the tailstock right-handed as well, okay? Now, oh shoot, there's something else I was going to tell you and now it slipped my mind. Okay, well, I'll think of it later on. Okay, so we've covered shearing and scraping and parting at the ends and all that good stuff. Now I'm going to switch to the 1/4" spindle gouge. We don't use this tool much, you can tell. They were the same length many years ago. But this is a nice tool for doing detailed work. For example, if you want to do the two basic cuts and turning, which are basically beads and coves. Okay, a bead is a bump, and a cove is a depression. So, let's start doing a cove. So I'm going to start the same way that I did. I'm going to rub the bevel, but then I'm going to turn my wrist quite aggressively. I just have to show you this. Rub the bevel, let it cutting, and then go from the other side. There. That's a cove. You can turn that with the 1/2" spindle gouge with your red handle tool as well. But I like the blue tool for that. I did think of the thing I was going to mention to you. If you're turning and your tool is starting to chatter, like to bounce, one thing you can try is just pushing down harder, straight down. Push into the tool rest, and that'll help stabilize the tool. I do it instinctively. I was doing it on this last cut and probably wouldn't have even noticed. Okay, so I started at the outside of the cove, I went to the bottom, and all I did was roll my wrist, okay? Okay, now I'm going to do a cove, or a bead, sorry. Where's my bead? So a bead, I do the opposite. I start in the middle, and I go out both ways. I'm going to make some clearance here. Notice how when I do a bead, When I finish the bead, the tool is completely sideways. Okay. Let's see. See how you can use beads and coves to make all kinds of shapes. Okay. Now the bead, there's a bad thing that can happen when if you're not rolling your gouge, in other words, having it straight sideways when you're done, you're going to go like this. You're going to be open. This would be open with the U up. This would be closed with the U sideways. Okay? You're going to be wide open, and this wing is going to grab the other side, and you're going to get a catch. Now, as much as I'm trying to warn you about this grade 8s, you won't understand this until you're turning. Okay? You'll have it happen to you a couple times, and you'll adjust to it then. You know, trying to show you what I can, but like I said, there's no substitute for turning. You can't learn to turn by watching me on a video. Okay, it can help, but it doesn't give you the skills you need. All right, so I think now that we've gone through the 3 basic tools, I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. And I don't know if I have any sandpaper here. Yes, I do. Look at that. Okay, I can tell that I didn't fold this paper because I would fold it the other way. But there we go, now I folded it. When you're sanding, move your tool rest out of the way. You do not want to get your fingers caught between the object and the tool rest. Make sure that the tool rests out of the way. If it isn't far enough out of the way, take this out, set it there, and away you go. When you sand with the lathe on, hold the paper in your right hand, put your left hand behind it, now if you want to sand in here, these edges, but always sand where the project is going away from you. Don't stand up here where it's coming towards you, because you can jam your fingers, you know, like playing basketball and the ball bounces up and hits you on the end of the finger. Yeah, that can happen in turning too, not with the basketball. So, and you can bend your paper. What you don't want to do, grade 8s, is sand over details like this. Because when you do that, you remove all the crispness from your turning. Okay, you have to be careful when you sand. Okay, the last thing is taking things off of the lathe. Now, I don't know, basically what I'll do for you is once you're to the point where your project, you think it's ready to come off the lathe, please don't start taking it off on your own. As long as we have wood here, we can put it in the lathe and do what we want. Sometimes people take their pieces out too early because they don't understand what we're actually going to do. But you don't want to go to the bandsaw and cut this off and then go to that sander over there and sand it. If you do that, I'm sorry, you're not a turner. You don't know anything. You really, really need to turn your pieces off of the lathe, not cut and sand them. Now, we do a little bit of cutting and a little bit of sanding because I've been hesitant to teach you how to take a piece off with the lathe running, okay? But basically what we would do is, I could come and do this for you. Let's say this is done. Okay. You could easily go down to about this thick a stub. And that's what I've done here. I've gone down to that. And go to the other side. There. Now, it would be very easy for me to hold it and take it off on the lathe, but like I said, I'm not going to show you guys how to do that because we had turned with many people here and I don't want pieces ricocheting off the wall and off the back of this person's head. So then we would take it out, and there should be a little saw that hangs right here. And look at that, it's here. I'm amazed. Okay, I'll come back into view to do it. Then just take this and cut it off, and then you'd have a little bit of sanding to do at each end. Okay? And then you put finish on your project and you burn your name in the bottom. I like your name for sure. Name graded year is great, but there's some projects there isn't enough room for that. So your name for sure, and you've completed your first turning. Well, I hope that you're going to enjoy this unit. For me, turning is one of my favorite things to do. I have many lathes at home and one really nice big one where you can turn big things on, which I really enjoy. But yeah, but these are small. It's a good way to get started. I didn't have a big lathe for 20 years. I turned without a big lathe. So you can learn everything with a small lathe, but you can turn big pieces on a big lathe, you can turn little pieces on a big lathe, but you can't turn big pieces on a little lathe. Okay, all right, that's that. See you in the shop.